Principle 5, be skillful. As far as ball control skills, we're going to talk about putting today, and the most important skill we can get you to develop is speed control. Speed is the name of the putting game. This is what you want to develop. This is what you want to get skillful at. So Ben, as far as controlling the speed goes, where do you start? What's most important on the list?
Number one place, it's very similar to ball striking. Where you hit it on the club face matters. So if you're striking your putts all over the face, the ball's constantly going to roll a different distance. So the first thing that you have to do if you want to be able to control the speed a little bit better on the green is you have to hit the same spot on the face every time. So what Chad and I are going to do is just a quick little demonstration of what happens when you hit middle versus heel versus toe. So if I set the putter down behind all three of these balls, notice one is set up in the middle of the face, one's heel, one's toe. So when I strike all three of these balls at the same time on the various spots in the face, look at what happens to the distance.
Oh, pretty fascinating. So the same stroke, three totally different
distances.
Outcomes. So center face contact then is the most important skill. Yeah. So that's what we want to get skillful at. So to start this, and you can do this in the living room, you can do it on the putting green. Before we get into the tees and the structure here, let's just start with a slight, moderate, severe, experiment, calibrate. So show us what would happen if you were going to try to hit it on the toe on purpose here. Very good. So you were intentionally trying to hit it off the toe?
Yep.
Now show us the heel. That felt different, sounded different, rolled a different distance. Now show us somewhere in between or what you feel like is just right. Okay. So totally different distance. So we would have you play with this at first. You can do it in the living room to grow awareness around where is that ball making contact on the sweet spot or on the toe, heel, what have you. So don't forget to use the slight, moderate, severe continuum as you're messing around with this. Once our friend at home has some awareness as to where it's being struck, then what are these tees about? Then what would you have them do?
The tees are going to make you aware where you're actually hitting it on the face, okay? So as you're trying to swing in between this gate that we have laid down here, notice there's one tee on the toe side, one tee on the heel side, so make sure that the putter can fit in between. And then just start making some strokes and see if you have a tendency to hit any of the tees. So if you're hitting the outside tee, that means you're hitting the heel side of the putter. If you're hitting the inside tee, that means you're hitting the toe side of the putter. So now you're going to have to make these slight adjustments in order to get that putter head to slide through the gate to find the center of the face.
Very good. Let's do a couple with the ball in the way and see what happens. Let's give you two opportunities here. Very nice. So you didn't catch one of the tees.
Nope.
Middle of the club face.
Smushed it.
Not bad. So speed control is what you're trying to develop, and as Ben has demonstrated, without the center face contact, it kind of falls apart because you can make the same great stroke, but if it just hits a little here or there, you get a different result.
That is true.
Okay, so play around with that toe, heel, center on purpose, get you a gate on the green, play with it. A little bit goes a long way. So if every time you start this way, you'd be helping yourself to have more center face contact. Once they're hitting it on the middle of the club face, then what do you want to have them play around with?
Then we can start to play around with the speed of the swing and the size of the swing. So what we're going to do per the book and the order that it goes in, we're going to start off with the size of the swing. So the length of the stroke, bigger swings, maybe versus some smaller swings, are ultimately going to influence how far the ball goes. And as you're trying to figure out what swing length is going to work for you, we like to always rely on our Goldilocks friend when we're doing our training. So what we're going to try to do here initially is we're going to try to set something that's too long, something that's too short, and then we're going to try to find that happy medium zone through experimentation.
Okay, so we have our 20 feet. So distances we'd like to encourage you to play with to develop your speed control is 10 feet, 20 feet, and 30 feet. So two putting inside of 30 feet is going to be critical toward your scoring goals. So you're going to do the size of the swing, yes?
Size of the swing, yep. So first one, I'm going to go what I feel is too long. So I'm going to actually try to intentionally hit this ball past the hole.
All right, so is it fair to say you were only focused on the size of the motion on that one?
That's it.
Very good. And then the ball went the perfect speed. It went, whatever, 6 feet past the hole.
Yep.
Now you're going to do what you feel like is too short.
Too short.
Okay, so what I saw, and you probably saw at home, is that stroke was a different size altogether. Ball
Radically
went
different, right?
All right, so now show us a speed of somewhere in between or what you feel like is just right. Okay, so before we move on, what would happen if we move back here to 30 feet? Would the same rules apply, or would it be the same, or would it be different because now we've just added 10 feet to the putt here?
Something is going to be different,
Yes.
that is for sure.
So when folks come to see us at B Golf, oftentimes their putting stroke is the same regardless of the distance, and that's where things start to break down.
So that's too long again.
Too long on the size.
Too short. In between.
Good. So is it fair to say that the sizes had to change because we changed the distance of the putt?
That is true. That is
Very
true.
good. So people aren't making appropriate adjustments, and then they think something's wrong, and the speed control suffers, and the score goes up. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So we got center face contact, the size of the speed, and then what's next?
Next is the speed of the swing. So playing around with different tempos. So we can swing the putter fast. We can swing the putter slow. And then you can swing somewhere in between. So playing around with the speed of the stroke ultimately is going to allow you to determine maybe what tempo you need to swing at to control the speed the best. There's some players out there that control the speed better with longer, slower strokes. There's some players that control it better with shorter and faster strokes. And then there's everything in between. So it's really important that you go out there and you run these experiments to figure out what allows you to control the speed the best, not what Golf Digest says.
Good. So a good clue would be the size or the speed that helps me experience the smoothest motion back to the free swinging motion. That applies in putting here as well. So there's no guiding, no steering. Definitely want to take the hit out of the motion,
flowing.
yeah? All right, so come on over here, George. So Ben's going to demonstrate 3 different speeds here. All right, which one are you going to do first?
I'm going to do the fast one first.
Too fast.
Too fast for me.
That's right. That's right.
Now I'm going to go long and slow, or just slow.
Kind of a gap between the intention versus reality there. So in your mind, it felt too slow.
Yep.
But the ball's teaching us that in this case was just appropriate, yes?
That is true. I'm going to go in between those two.
All right.
So still just way too fast. And for those of you who have maybe played golf with me, so if you ask Chad, what does my stroke maybe typically look like? I'm definitely on the longer, slower side. So it's no surprise to me that the slower stroke allowed me to control the speed a lot better.
Yeah, so be very aware of the intention versus reality gap. What you're looking to do is find out what motion, 1, helps it smooth out, but 2, and probably more importantly, is what distance, what size or speed makes it most appropriate for the distance.
That is true.
Speed control is the name of the putting
Name
game.
of the game.
Anything else that would influence the speed that you can think of?
How the ball rolls is going to influence the speed. So sometimes if your ball if you notice it's hopping all over the place, the ball is kind of slowing down as it's hopping. So how the ball's rolling off the putter face will ultimately influence your ability to control the speed as well. So if one time it's rolling perfectly smooth and the next time it's hopping, if the length and the speed of the stroke are the exact same in both those instances, what you would notice is the ball would roll 2 different distances. So getting your ball to roll appropriately matters as well.
Yeah, how would you get somebody to experiment with that? So George, if you come on over here, you might see this a little bit clearer from the face-on view here.
So I think there's a couple different things that might influence this. So how much the shaft is leaning forward or back is going to influence the ball's launch condition. So that's the first thing that we would play around with. So slight, moderate, severe forward, slight, moderate, severe backwards, and just observe how the ball rolls when you run those experiments.
When, George, if you get in there, so as Ben moves the shaft more forward, look what happens to the loft of the face. So as he moves the shaft well forward, it lofts it down. And then if you were to move the shaft backward, it lofts it up. So that's what he talked about, is influencing the launch condition. So now if the ball comes out bouncing and wobbling, the speed's going to suffer. If it comes out smooth. All right, do you want to do that experiment and see what happens here?
Sure.
So which one are you going to start with?
Let's start with, I'm going to go the forward direction first.
Starting severe mostly?
Yep. And when you're doing this at home, I do this with a longer putt, so something that's maybe 40 to 50 feet, so you can really see how the ball's launching off the putter. So I'm going to go moderately forward here with a shaft lean.
Very good. So that thing, to me, from my perspective, appeared as though it took off pretty flat, no bouncing, no bobbling.
Rolled pretty nice there, right?
Yes.
So now let's go the opposite direction. So I'm gonna go moderately backwards here.
I kind of heard it skip, so it didn't sound as solid as the one previous.
And you can see it, you know, we're out here kind of early in the morning, so you can actually even see it in the dew. If you do this activity early in the morning, you can actually see whether the ball's rolling or hopping just by what's happening with the dew on the grass.
You want to try it? Try it over here. Let's see what happens. All right, so where are you going to start? You're going to go
I'll
more
go backwards again with the shaft here.
Yeah, so this thing didn't start, so that's interesting. You launch it from there, and we don't really start picking up the line till here.
Yeah.
So it was in the air.
A long time.
A long time.
Now I'm gonna go moderately forward again.
So it started rolling a little bit sooner.
Yeah.
A little bit sooner.
You got it.
So back to calibrating, slight, moderate, severe. Play with the shaft lean as well. So start with center face contact.
Yep.
Play with the size. Play with the speed, and then if it's still not having control of that distance, then look to the shaft lean.
And then the other thing that you can play around with too is like hitting down on putts or up on putts too. So players that maybe are hitting like downward on a putt too much, they're imparting backspin on the ball. So it'll once again cause it to hop and skip around. In a perfect world with your putter, you actually want to hit up on that ball just a little bit to get the ball tumbling end over end. So playing around with how much down you're hitting on it versus up will ultimately influence how your ball rolls as well. You can do this early in the morning, get out there with the dew busters and go watch how the ball rolls and run those same experiments. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm gonna hit down on a couple of these and up on a couple of these, and let's just see how the ball rolls when we run those experiments.
I want you to notice again, as Ben is doing this, and he's really being playful, so at no time is he mad or angry or frustrated about the ball not being perfect. He's just out here to figure out what variables influence the ball, focus around the speed of, or the skill of speed. Yeah?
Yeah.
Good.